Okay, morning folks. Um, Welcome to the Lasham Daily Flying Briefing on the 19th of September. So, what have we got today? Well, been watching this system developing steadily over northern Spain and then up through France to see what it was actually going to do, but it's been modelled in a couple of different ways over the last 24 hours. Possibly the fronts could get to us, possibly they'll stick in the channel or slide past us to the west. Well, it does look like it's sort of remained fairly stationary over the last 12 hours here, and it's now sliding weather systems west of us, basically across the very west of England over Cornwall. So all we're really going to see, I think, from this is some elements of cloud perhaps this morning and then that disappearing off. But you can see we're still in this sort of situation where we're drawing in easterly air and fairly tightly packed isobars. Pressure gradient, this is 1011 and there's 1024 over the north of England, so that's fairly compressed. So it's a breezy easterly day again. And the winds, perhaps in the very, very south across northern France and the Channel, slightly lighter than yesterday. But over us, I think, very similar sort of picture, saying 20 knots to the north, 30 knots to the south, so 25 knots at flying heights is something to be expected. Yesterday, it probably was 30 knots, maybe even a little bit more than that at 1,000 feet. But the difference being today, they're slightly more northeasterly. That's 070, 060 to the south of us. And the TAFs are showing on the ground, certainly the forecast for Gatwick is 060 and Heathrow 050, so northeasterly. And Gatwick is showing 15 gusting 25, which I think we're going to see for a little part of the day. It's probably gusting 20 knots out there at the moment in the middle of the field, and I think it's going to get a bit windier and then back off mid to late afternoon, back to sort of about 10 to 12 knots. So quite a breezy day and blustery and probably turbulent, certainly in the lee of the trees to the north of the airfield. SatPic doesn't really show much. This is the cloud that's drifting to the west of us, and you can see it's thickening up a little bit over the southwest of England, and there's bits of rain showers there. But that's going to just drift away and we'll have a relatively clear day, I think. And temperatures, northeasterly winds, never going to feel warm. The last couple of days they've talked about 20, 21 degrees, and the Lasham weather station has got to 19 degrees yesterday and 20 degrees the day before, but it won't feel like that on the ground. Stood in the wind, it'll feel quite cold and you'll need a coat on. So yeah, maybe 19 degrees today, 20 maybe over the sort of very far southeast. And dew points, they're about 11s at the moment, they'll be down around 10. So you'd think a reasonable temperature split, but it is a fairly solid inversion that's going to keep a lid on things today. And the soundings sort of show that, even plugging in all the different models, the best I can do is 2.5 above sea level with 19 degrees. So I don't think it's going to be a fantastic day. I think if you get 21 degrees, yeah, you might have 3,000 feet. And the chance of some cumulus at that sort of temperature, it's certainly not quite so dry in this area as it has been in the last couple of days. But interestingly, Top Meteo don't seem to show that. Though they didn't show the cumulus yesterday that formed for about an hour to an hour and a half before it dried itself out. Top Meteo, well, they're saying if it does get soarable, it won't be till probably midday onwards, and then only 7, 8, maybe 900 meters at best, just under 3,000 feet. And then doing the same as it did yesterday, it deteriorated a bit in the afternoon, became quite difficult to stay airborne. Cloud amounts, they're showing this upper cloud here drifting away as the morning goes on. We might see some cumulus and then it bluing out for the afternoon as things dry out a little bit. And as you can imagine, there's not a great deal of suggested cross-country distance for today. Tomorrow looking very, very similar. We thought we were going to be sort of shot of the sort of easterly winds, but that doesn't seem to be the case for the next day or so. And I think you're stuck with it for a little while, as you can see. Still easterly tomorrow and still fairly fresh, 12 to 15 knots at 30 feet and probably gusting around 20 tomorrow. So similar sort of picture tomorrow, perhaps slightly warmer, sun coming out a little bit earlier with less top cover to start off with, but a very similar day. Okay, so if we do go flying today, a couple of things to note. Airspace wise, very little going on in the area around Lasham for today, but operationally we have enough of a northeasterly to warrant us going down onto 05 and operating, and this is 05 here, this runway running up here, operating with a winch launch point around here somewhere. Now it's tricky to aerotow on 05 when it's windy, because the ground here is incredibly rough and you're still often airborne by the time you cross the cross runway. So aerotowing operation is going to take place from the main runway, and they'll liaise between the two launch points to ensure that there's no conflict between launching cables and aerotows taking off. So if you want to aerotow today, folks, it's over on the main runway on 09. Just be aware it's going to be fairly blustery. And there were some exciting takeoffs yesterday with the northeasterly wind, and to winch launch will be down here. All the landing areas here are all fine. Not a problem at all. You can land on this side, absolutely fine. It's just a bit too bumpy for the Robins to actually operate. Okay, so let's get all the K21s out. As I know it's going to be fairly windy and fairly turbulent, can we leave the baby grobs outside the hangar until we've actually started flying and we can make an assessment on whether it's suitable for them to fly today? Okay, folks, see you out there shortly.